Think about the last time you walked through airport security. You took off your shoes. You unbuckled your belt. You emptied your pockets into a plastic bin and shuffled through a beeping metal frame while a stranger in a uniform watched a screen. It is slow. It is humiliating. It has barely changed since the 1970s. Every stadium, every courthouse, every school in America still relies on this exact same bottleneck. A physical gate you have to stop and walk through one person at a time. But right now, in a testing facility outside Shenzhen, Chinese engineers have built a machine that makes that entire gate irrelevant. It does not beep. It does not require you to stop. It does not need you to remove a single item from your pockets. You simply walk past it at a normal human pace, and in less than half a second, it has already scanned your entire body for weapons, explosives, and contraband. No line, no bin, no frame to walk through. If you are enjoying videos like this, please hit the like button because it takes a lot of effort to make these, and subscribe so you do not miss the next one. This is not a futuristic concept sketch. It is a working prototype already being piloted in Chinese transit hubs, and it is about to make every single security checkpoint in the United States look like a relic from another century. How do you scan a human body for a hidden knife without ever touching them, without them stopping, and without a giant metal frame? It sounds impossible. A standard metal detector works by generating a weak magnetic field. When a piece of metal disrupts that field, an alarm sounds. But that technology is dumb. It cannot tell the difference between a gun and a belt buckle. That is why you have to empty your pockets in the first place. The new Chinese system throws that entire approach away. It uses something called active terahertz imaging. Terahertz waves sit in a strange gap on the electromagnetic spectrum, somewhere between microwaves and infrared light. Unlike an X-ray, they do not damage human tissue. But here is the critical part. They pass straight through clothing, fabric, and plastic, while bouncing directly off denser material like metal, ceramics, and packed explosive compounds. Engineers mounted arrays of tiny terahertz emitters into ordinary-looking walls and archways. As a person walks through the space at a completely normal pace, thousands of these emitters bounce invisible waves off their body every fraction of a second, building a live three-dimensional map underneath their clothing. An AI system reads that map instantly, flagging anything shaped like a blade, a firearm, or a dense chemical brick. The person never breaks stride. They never even know the scan happened unless the system flags them. It is the difference between stopping every car on a highway to search the trunk and having a hidden sensor read every trunk, as the cars simply drive past at full speed. But building a machine that can read a human body through fabric in real time, at walking speed, without a single false alarm, requires a level of sensor precision that Western security firms assumed was still a decade away. To understand how big of a leap this actually is, you have to go back to a much more embarrassing chapter in Chinese manufacturing. In the early 2010s, China was already the world's dominant exporter of cheap physical security hardware. Walk into almost any small business, warehouse, or apartment complex in the world, and the CCTV camera bolted above the door was almost certainly made in a Chinese factory. But there was a massive, humiliating gap in their capability. They could mass-produce the cheap plastic camera housing. They could not build the actual sensor chip inside it. The high-precision imaging sensors, the ones sensitive enough to read faces in low light or scan through material, all came from Japan, Germany, and the United States. Chinese-made security cameras were functionally hollow shells stuffed with foreign brains. State media in China openly admitted the problem. Domestic manufacturers were producing millions of units a year, while remaining completely dependent on foreign firms for the one component that actually mattered. It was the same embarrassing pattern you see across their industrial history. They dominated the cheap, disposable version of a product while quietly begging the West for the precision component hidden inside it. For a government obsessed with technological self-sufficiency, this was an unacceptable vulnerability, especially in a category as sensitive as national security hardware. If a geopolitical conflict ever cut off access to foreign sensor chips, China's entire domestic surveillance and security infrastructure would be built on hollow, dependent technology. So Beijing poured state funding into domestic sensor research, specifically targeting the terahertz and millimeter wave imaging space, a niche that Western firms had barely bothered to commercialize because it was considered too difficult and too expensive to scale. For nearly a decade, Chinese state labs and companies like Nuctech ran endless trials, refining the sensor arrays, shrinking the emitters, and training the software to separate a real threat from a stray belt buckle or an underwire bra without flooding operators with false alarms. That last part was the real bottleneck. Early prototypes were so sensitive they triggered constant false alerts, making them useless in a crowded terminal. Engineers had to feed the AI millions of scanned images until it could reliably tell the difference between a smartphone in a pocket and a ceramic blade. By the early 2020s, they had cracked it. The walk-through terahertz scanner stopped being a lab curiosity and became a deployable product. Now, here is the part that should genuinely worry the companies that built their entire business model on the old metal detector. This is not a story about airport convenience. It is a story about the physical death of the checkpoint itself. For nearly a century, physical security in America has operated on one unbreakable assumption. If you want to keep weapons out of a building, you have to force a bottleneck. You have to make people stop, funnel them one at a time through a narrow frame, and manually search anyone who trips the alarm. This assumption built an entire American industry. Companies like Smith's Detection, L3 Harris, and OSI Systems have spent decades selling metal detectors, X-ray baggage scanners, and body scanner booths to airports, stadiums, and government buildings across the country. It is a multi-billion-dollar market built entirely around the idea that security requires friction. You cannot make people happy about security, so instead, you make peace with the delay. The Chinese breakthrough shatters that core assumption. If a scanner can read a moving crowd at full walking speed with zero physical contact and zero bottleneck, the entire justification for the traditional checkpoint collapses. Why would a stadium spend millions building slow, snaking security lines that infuriate 50,000 fans before a football game, when they could install invisible scanning archways along the normal entry gates and let people walk straight through at a natural pace? Why would a school district force nervous teenagers to stand in a metal detector line every single morning, when hallway-mounted sensors could flag a weapon silently before a student even reaches the classroom door? The moment friction becomes optional, customers stop tolerating it. And that puts the traditional American security screening industry in a direct and immediate collision course with a foreign competitor that has already solved the harder engineering problem. This is exactly why American defense contractors and Homeland Security officials are watching this technology extremely closely, because the stakes go far beyond stadium convenience. Security checkpoints are not just about detecting weapons. They are one of the last physical choke points where a government can reliably identify who is entering a controlled space. If China controls the core sensor technology behind the next generation of security infrastructure, they are not just selling hardware. They are positioning themselves to become the default supplier for the physical entry points of governments, airports, and corporations across the entire developing world. Think about how much leverage that represents. Every scanner sold is a piece of infrastructure that has to be maintained, updated, and serviced by the company that built it. If dozens of countries adopt Chinese-made walk-through scanning archways as their new security standard, Beijing quietly becomes the gatekeeper of physical access control for a huge share of the planet. For the United States, this raises the exact same anxiety that has already played out with 5G telecom equipment and surveillance cameras. A foreign government-linked company embedded inside the physical security backbone of allied nations is not just a commercial threat. It is a strategic one. American officials have already restricted the use of certain Chinese-made scanning and surveillance hardware in sensitive federal buildings over these exact concerns. But restricting the technology domestically does nothing to stop it from spreading everywhere else. If Chinese firms can build a scanner that is faster, cheaper, and less intrusive than anything American or European firms currently offer, most of the world is going to buy the better product regardless of where it was made. And once that infrastructure is installed at scale, ripping it back out becomes almost politically impossible. There is also a much darker layer hiding underneath the convenience, and it has nothing to do with weapons detection at all. A terahertz body scanner does not just see metal. It sees shape. It sees a rough outline of your entire body underneath your clothing in real time as you walk. Early versions of this technology in airport body scanners caused a massive public backlash in the United States back in the 2010s, precisely because the images looked uncomfortably close to a nude scan. Regulators eventually forced companies to soften the imaging into a generic cartoon outline just to keep the technology politically viable. The new Chinese walk-through system operates at a scale far beyond a single airport booth. It is designed to be embedded invisibly into building walls, subway entrances, and stadium archways, scanning thousands of people continuously throughout the day without them ever consenting to an individual search. Combine that constant biometric scanning with the facial recognition cameras China has already perfected and exported globally, and you get something far more powerful than a weapons detector. You get a system capable of tracking not just who someone is, but what they might be carrying on their body, silently, continuously, across an entire city. For an authoritarian government, that is an enormously useful tool for social control. For any government that imports the technology without asking hard questions about where the data goes, it is an open door. Despite all of this, the psychological barriers standing between Americans and this technology may not be privacy at all. It might simply be trust in the machine's judgment. Human beings have spent decades associating security with visible physical evidence. You watch the officer wave the wand. You hear the beep. You see your bag get physically opened. There is a strange comfort in that ritual, even though it is slow and invasive. Asking the public to trust an invisible wave they cannot see, operated by an algorithm they cannot question, flagged silently as they walk past without even realizing they were scanned, requires an enormous leap of faith. If the system makes a mistake, if it flags an innocent person or misses an actual threat, there is no dramatic beep for the public to point to, just a quiet failure buried inside a black box. That psychological discomfort is exactly why this technology will not launch first in an American airport. It will follow the same rollout playbook every disruptive Chinese hardware innovation follows. It starts in commercial spaces where the financial pain of the old system is highest. High-traffic Chinese subway systems and stadiums desperate to eliminate slow entry lines. Then it moves to private high-security commercial real estate, corporate campuses, and luxury venues willing to pay a premium to look cutting-edge while eliminating visible security theater. Eventually, it creeps into public infrastructure in countries that never built the political resistance the United States has around biometric surveillance. By the time it quietly arrives on American shores, Most consumers will already be walking through it in airports overseas without even noticing, normalized long before anyone in Washington finishes debating the privacy implications. Which brings us back to that plastic bin and that beeping metal frame you shuffled through the last time you flew somewhere. For 50 years, we accepted that keeping a building safe meant forcing a bottleneck, stopping every single person, and physically searching anyone the machine could not clear with confidence. That entire assumption is now negotiable. A wall can watch you walk past without ever stopping you. A hallway can scan 1,000 people an hour without a single line forming. The gate, the beep, the plastic bin, all of it starts to look like the payphone booth of physical security. A relic everyone will eventually laugh about once the invisible replacement becomes normal. But before you get excited about never removing your shoes again, remember that the same invisible wave that can spot a hidden blade can also map the outline of your body without your permission, thousands of times a day, without you ever knowing it happened. We are trading a visible, clumsy inconvenience for an invisible, silent form of surveillance that is far more powerful and far harder to regulate. The company or country that controls this sensor technology is not just selling faster security lines. They are quietly building the physical access control layer for the next century of public infrastructure. So here is a question for you. If your local airport or stadium replaced the metal detector with an invisible scanning archway tomorrow, one that let you walk straight through without stopping, would you welcome the convenience? Or does the idea of an invisible machine reading your body without your knowledge scare you more than the beeping frame ever did? Let me know your honest answer down in the comments.